You don't have to be an anaesthetist or a cave diver to realise that you can't render someone unconscious, then push their head underwater for that 3-hour journey and expect that they're going to be alive at the other end. And I had 100 reasons why they would and could perish in that journey.
So what did you say?
I said, forget it, that's preposterous. But I'm happy to come to Thailand, and I knew my mate Craig would be on board for the challenge. And so I said, look, let us come over. Maybe having a couple more cave divers there will be helpful. As a doctor, perhaps I can go to the far end of the cave and sit with these kids. I didn't realise that actually one of the Thai Navy SEALs was actually a medical doctor as well, so he was already with them. But maybe we can help, but in the meantime, you'll have to come up with a better idea than that one.
You've had this plan put to you. You've been practising and cave diving for years, but you've been practising the rescues. You're an emergency anaesthetist. You are probably the only person on this earth with the exact set of skills to be able to even contemplate a plan like this. Did the weight of that realisation, did that weigh heavily on you?
No, not at all. I saw it as an opportunity. You know, I had this improbable constellation of skills that I was, really keen to put into practice. You know, I always say...
But you'd said no, you said you didn't...
Well, I didn't want to put that part of my skills into practice.
Right.
But the through-water cave rescue stuff was stuff we'd been training to do, and I'd developed this course because I assumed maybe one day, I'll be in a cave, I'll fall over, break my leg, and someone will have to rescue me through a sump, a submerged section of cave.
One day.
Yeah, one day.
We hope. But I wanted to know how to do that, and so we'd been practising and rehearsing for that.
Harry, you're facing an almighty moral dilemma at this point, aren't you? You've already said you thought it was impossible, basically, to get these boys out underwater without them drowning. Yet if they stayed there, they would die, certainly. How did you work your way through that dilemma?
I kind of had 36 hours on the ground to reach a decision point because the meteorologists had told us that we had 3 to 5 days before the monsoons returned, and when they did come back, they would stick and all further diving would have to stop because the river flowing out of the cave was so powerful, you just couldn't dive into it. And Rick and John, the British guys, had already seen it like that, so they knew what the force of the water was like. So basically I had to make a decision that either I was going to get back on a plane and go back to Adelaide and leave these children to die in a cave chamber that the oxygen levels were falling. They didn't have enough food, so they were going to starve, they were going to die of exposure, and they were certainly going to succumb to infection because the cave environment was pretty disgusting by the time we got there. Or I could try this thing, which I felt would have a 100% mortality rate. But, the way I think in my mind I managed to make that decision was that sometimes it's just easier to do something than to do nothing. And the idea of turning my back on those children and going back to Adelaide was impossible. I could not do that, so we gave it a crack.